Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber. I'm joined here by attorney Jessica Ramirez, and good afternoon to everybody. We have a lot to cover here on the program, so let's get started right up. Oh boy, what a fun day for Robert Kraft. Jessica, let's start with the meat and potatoes of this. They're saying that this was a constitutional violation. It's questionable how they got those cameras in there. What do you make of it?
I think it was definitely over the top. And that's what the defense is trying to prove, how over the top this has been. I mean, they came in there and now they said there was a bomb scare in order for them to put these cameras
Is
up.
that legal? Can you do that, false pretenses?
Unfortunately, you can do that. It is legal, but it is definitely over the top. I mean, they had to secure the area. Could they have come up with a better way to do this? Maybe anything else besides a bomb scare, but yes, unfortunately, it is legal.
Why is that legal if you're making up an excuse to get cameras in there?
Well, because remember why they needed to do this. They thought human trafficking was going on, right? And that is a public interest, right? We want to get these people off, and they're off the streets, and these are true victims. So that was under the pretenses we have to get in there. How do we do this? I was watching the officer testify this morning. They came up with other ideas, but they thought this one would be the best available idea because they could secure everyone out of the area and they could come in and do this stealth.
Well, I don't know how stealthy it was. I mean, there's a chance we might see more that's not so stealthy. Here's my question to you. This is the whole case right here. Am I wrong? I mean, if this video gets in, he pled not guilty to these solicitation and prostitution charges. What's he going to argue? Saying that's not him on tape, that this was consensual, that he didn't know what was going on? I mean,
I think it's definitely going to be very difficult for the prosecution to get a conviction because they don't have the tape anymore. And he can definitely say, listen, I went in there to get a massage. And whatever happened after that, it was two consenting adults.
Okay, but what happens if the tape does come in? What can he do?
That's going to be very difficult.
I
mean, it's on camera.
But let's go back. Remember R. Kelly back in the day? You had him on camera. Well, they thought they had him on camera, and he said, look, it wasn't me. It was a grainy video. I don't know what the level of this, I don't know how high definition this video is, and we're talking about something that probably happened, I think, this past year as opposed to a video that happened, years ago. Can you really look at a video and say to a jury, hey, I'm not really sure that's Robert Kraft right there?
Well, there's some really good videos that are not grainy and you can't fake it. It's right there. I mean, it's going to depend, I think, on the victim, the prostitute, on whether what she's going to say, and maybe she'll testify against him. Who knows?
Wow, I'm sorry, I'm just like visualizing that for a second. Do you think that if the video ultimately is not thrown out, that he might change his plea? And say, hey, I'm going to plead guilty to this? Because then things are very different. I
think that would be the smart thing to do so he doesn't have any more media attention. I mean, this is crazy.
It is crazy. And let's just figure this out for a second. Can he then plead guilty? And what would happen? His career would be over. He would be pleading guilty to these 2 misdemeanor charges. Would there be prison time?
Not on a misdemeanor charge. There wouldn't be any prison time, not in New Jersey anyway, where I practice. It would be a fine. And that's it. And it would be up to his employer whether that goes against their policies. So I don't think, it's going to be a slap on the wrist and a fine, and that's it. And the public humiliation, which is probably worse than anything else.
If he pleads guilty, he loses his team, right? I mean, that's what would happen.
Probably, yes.
So it's not so much the fine or even, like you said, probably not going to get prison time, but he'd lose his team. He'd lose his career.
Probably so, because the football, they don't want to deal with this anymore. They have so many issues at this point. But it would really go against whatever the policy his employer has.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to watch, and obviously we're going to be covering it. I want to go back to Jessica right now real quick and just get your perspective on this. Let me ask you this. Why didn't she cross-examine her husband? We thought that was going to be the only person that she would cross-examine, the only person that she would question about what happened to young Imani.
I have no idea. This is the weirdest case that I've ever seen. I mean, it is a death penalty case, and she has done nothing. She hasn't even looked at her discovery. Her attorneys keep saying there's a box sitting out there in the jail. She hasn't even looked at it. She hasn't done nothing. I think that she's definitely competent, right? She's an educated woman. I think she's a teacher, but she's a sociopath. She's insane.
We still have more of trial to go, right? And we don't know. Stranger things have happened, but let's say she is found guilty. how quickly would a jury go towards the death penalty here, even in a heinous case like this? You know, and we had a guest on yesterday who looked under the Georgia law and wasn't convinced that what this woman is accused of doing, starving a child, is actually torture and might even fit into the category of the death penalty. But I'm just curious, what do you think? You think it'd be easy for a jury to sentence her to death?
I think so, because she hasn't fought for her freedom. She hasn't fought for her defense. She's done nothing. When you look at the totality of the evidence that's presented, how she beat this child and was on probation for 5 years. I mean, if you've never had any criminal background and you get put on probation for 5 years, she must have beat that child.
Yeah.
And there was, I mean, a lot of welts, from what I understand, everywhere on her legs from a belt.
Yeah.
So I think once you look at the totality and these text messages where she does, you know, putting Imani down, she is texting while she's dead, texting back and forth pictures of her kids.
It's heinous.
It's absolutely horrible.
Okay. What's going on? I mean, what do you think it's like to be her defense counsel on the side there who want to jump in? Do we have any idea what this could be about?
So frustrating for them, I'm sure, because they want to help her. They can't. And I have no clue what this woman wants. Again, she hasn't even looked at her discovery. She hasn't taken any notes. She is a sociopath. I have no idea what this is about.
But here's the interesting thing. The judge never said she's not competent. He said, you know, she understands what's going on. She's paying attention. She's taking notes. He didn't, you know, as much as the objection from her outside counsel there wants to put an end to this, he's not.
No, I think she's competent. I mean, she's a teacher. She's educated. She has her wits. She knows where she is.
Right.
She knows she's in a courtroom, and it's a very high standard. But no, I just think that she is a sociopath, and that's what happens.
Well, you know who might be thinking about what's going on? The jury. They have a lot to be thinking about. Okay, now, Jessica, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's still an issue about her having a conference with the judge. Obviously, there's some issue with her defense counsel, who's off on the side behind her, jumping in there. And it could be an issue surrounding whether or not, it's a secret issue. It's a secret that we don't know really what it is, but it could be that she maybe wants her standby counsel to take over the case for her. Is that standard? I mean, somebody who's in the middle of defending herself realizes, oh, maybe I should probably have my attorneys take over the rest.
This whole case is not standard. This is the wild Wild West right now. I mean, this woman is facing death penalty, murder charges, and she's representing herself and not doing anything about it. I mean, I've seen people do this in the past, but at least they cross-examine, they have prepared an opening. She's doing nothing. So this whole thing is totally bizarre. Yes, she might be thinking about this long and hard now and wants her standby counsel.
But didn't she say she's going to leave this up to God?
She did, because again, even though she's competent, she's a sociopath and insane. And I think that she's realizing that God is not going to help her now.
Well, what we also heard just now is that we believe the forensic examiner, the pathologist, is going to testify. It will get very difficult to listen to the injuries. What are you going to be looking out for when this witness ultimately testifies for the state?
I mean, they're going to go into how the body was found, and if, you know, we still don't know if she was starved to death or if she was poisoned, because I know that came up a few times. We have no idea how they found her body, her weight, 10 years old and 32 pounds. I mean, that's maybe a 5-year-old. And how they were probably had to break her bones to get her into that trash can. So it's going to be very difficult, and the pictures are going to be very difficult.
No, absolutely. That's going to be given, and hopefully we're probably not going to show those pictures, but I guess timing matters as well. If she was starved and the level of starvation and how long it took, it's different than any other kind of death where you could say, oh, it was an accident or something. To starve a child. And I said this yesterday, that 10 years old is an interesting age, right? Because you're almost at the point where you could start feeding yourself and taking care of it, making yourself food, but you're not quite there. You're still dependent on parents. You're still dependent on an adult. What do you make of that?
I mean, I think that she probably was able to make or get her own food even younger. This was definitely, she intended to kill this girl. This has been going on for years. She is on probation for it. She's burned this child. She started homeschooling her, I think, so the school wouldn't find evidence of abuse. So this was absolutely intentional, and she's been trying to kill her for years.
You know, that level of abuse that we learned about for years, where this young girl ran away and nothing happened because, unfortunately, at that time, the police, there was nothing to be done.
Yeah.
There was no evidence. I mean, this woman, the Tiffany Moss, was put on probation at one point for abusing this girl, but back in 2012 when she tried to run away, nothing came of it.
That breaks my heart.
I think we can jump back live right now. So I warn our viewers as well. This is going to be difficult testimony from the forensic examiner about the injury sustained and what ultimately led to the death of Imani Moss, this 10-year-old girl. All right, so as she goes through her credentials, let's just take a step back and talk about Imam Moss, who was testifying yesterday, and we had the opportunity to talk about it. What a father, huh? What a father, talking about, you know, his baby girl is starved to death, or that's what's believed, and then he helped dispose of the body. Why did he do that? Why did he help dispose of the body of his daughter?
Well, first of all, he's totally neglected this girl. So she was abused by the stepmom and totally neglected by dad. Dad completely checked out. I mean, for years, he has watched his daughter. Listen, he went to court with his wife. I'm sure he was there during the process and when she pled guilty and she's on probation. So this father has completely checked out, definitely worried about his wife, picked his wife over his daughter, and totally neglected this little girl. What I do find, where I guess I'll give him props, is that he pled guilty.
Yep.
When he was on the stand, I thought this was one of the best answers that he gave. What did you do? What did you do when you saw that your daughter was being abused? And he said, absolutely nothing. And that's exactly what he did. He did nothing. He stood by and watched his own flesh and blood, his firstborn, be tortured. And it's shameful. And then, I'm sorry, he also said, well, all week I'm hearing that she doesn't eat, but when she's with me, she is, I think he said gouging, and then he had to be corrected. Again, just, I wonder where he is mentally, where he just checked out, went to work, did nothing, wouldn't even go check in on his daughter when he was outside. I don't understand, but at least he pled guilty. At least he's testifying, and he took, for him to say I did absolutely nothing, I think he's come into terms with it.
He's the star witness for the state, and for a reason. And yeah, the fact that he went to work after his daughter died, still something that I can't quite get out of my head. Jessica, let me ask you this. As we listen to the details of this, and on top of the fact that this girl was apparently starved, and then they tried to burn her body and then disposed of her body in this garbage can, where does this case rank in terms of other child abuse cases that you've seen?
Absolutely one of the worst, especially because of the dad and how he was involved, and it was two parents, and how dad went to work, how dad, saw her there, and walked by her, stayed with her. They put her in a computer room for a few days. Children were still around, living life. I just think that's so morbid and so sad. And to think that this little girl tried to get help, right? Kids are so scared. Kids never will protect their parents, are scared of authority. And this girl went out and spoke to a police officer and still was not believed. No,
she had no chance. The thing that I'm looking at as well is Tiffany Moss. During the examination of what happened to her 10-year-old stepdaughter, we're learning from the medical examiner really horrifying details. She's not showing much emotion. What do you make of that?
She hasn't shown much emotion at all. She hasn't shown any emotion. Right. Just very cordial and polite, but that's it. And again, it goes to my thought that she is a sociopath. Competent, absolutely, but there's a special place for her, for sure.
Well, let me ask you this. If this eventually continues on, and will she provide a closing argument? Will she do anything during the course of this case? I mean, I know there's some secret that she has with the judge, that she wants to have this meeting, and we're not really sure what it is. I know her defense counsel keeps jumping up to try to intervene, but will she say anything through this trial, or will she really just put this in God's hands, as she said?
No, I'm not sure what she's going to do. Maybe her family will speak some sense into her. Maybe her lawyers will finally speak some sense into her. Maybe she will get scared by the end. that this is her last straw, so she better speak now. But it's going to be very interesting to see what she's going to do.
What I keep seeing is every day it keeps getting worse for her. I mean, as bad as you thought it was Iman Moss testifying against her, but listening to the medical examiner ruled this homicide, and then the really going into details about what happens to a body when it's starved,
Absolutely.
when somebody starves to death. I mean, what do you make of that?
That it was a slow death and that she saw this every day. Remember, she's with her every day. She doesn't go to school. She's never seen anywhere, and she's witnessing. While there's 2 other kids that she's given love to. So I think this is probably the most horrific case that I've ever witnessed.
If she was represented by counsel, what would be the arguments to fight against this? Would it be try to put the blame on Iman Moss?
That's what I would do if I was representing Miss Moss. I would put the blame on Dad. It was his daughter. He knew. He's the one that bought the can, right? The trash can. We have him on camera. He's the one that tried to burn her, and it didn't work. And of course now he's testifying. He has a better deal than I do. So you shouldn't believe him.
That's certainly right. He took the death penalty off the table. Yes, he'll spend the rest of his life in prison, but as long as he did that and testified against his wife, we all know how this is working out. Jessica, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate your insight. All right, everybody, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's going to be all more about Tiffany Moss. We'll be right back.